Hello, everybody, and welcome to Celebrate with L.A. Williams. My name is L.A. Williams, and I am so excited to bring to you this very special episode. Today, we are celebrating the one and only Miss Sam White. Sam, how are
Hi,
you? Oh
LA.
my God, Sam, I love you so much. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to see you. You see me smiling, like right, looking right at you, looking all
I
awkward. You know,
know.
I got a crush on LA, y'all.
And I got a crush on you too. I love it. I am so excited. Sam, before we get into the interview portion of this, the conversation, I want to take a few seconds to talk about what Celebrate is and what it means to me, if that's all right with you.
Yes, please. Yes.
Awesome. So this series is a manifestation of a moment I had as a very, very young theater student. I was at Alabama State University, and I had walked over to the theater building to see their show. And they were doing a play called Phaedra by Jean Racine, and it was directed by Dr. Tommy Stewart. And Sam, it was one of those moments where, it was the moment where I was completely bitten by the bug. And I was like, oh, my God, this language, these costumes, the lights, the stage, the acting, it was all of the drama in my head, right? And I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. But the other thing I kept feeling while watching that show 4 times that weekend, because I went back every performance after that first one, was that I needed to find everybody involved in that production and say thank you to them, Sam. I needed to let them know how much their work meant to me and how much it inspired me and changed me. And when I think about it, that was truly the genesis of what now is Celebrate. Cut to some years later, I'm living in New York City, and I truly have the divine inspiration to create this sort of interview platform where I sit down with some of those people whose work has really inspired me and listen to them talk about their journey and some of those transformative moments in their life. And so I began, sitting down with folks, and 10 years later, here I am still doing it. And I'm so grateful and honored to be doing this. And that is how I got to inviting you to come on. Hey. Oh, Sam. Oh, first of all, I'm clearly obsessed with you. I think that shows already. But what I want to do in my introduction of you is talk a little bit about how we met. So, of course, as you know, we met for the first time a few years ago, actually, at the Old Globe Theater, where we both were the inaugural class of the Old Globe Classical Directing Fellows. Shout out to the Old Globe, Barry Edelstein, all the people over there, Lamar Perry. And truly, Sam, from the moment we met, I knew I was in the presence of someone very special, someone very beautiful and powerful and talented. And someone who would be a lifelong friend, because immediately that Midwest spirit of yours connected with my Midwest.
Yes, it did.
And I was like, who is this person that I clearly already know? Just the way you gathered me and all the things, the way we talked to each other, I was like, this is my sister. But the other thing that I really remember, Sam, about first meeting you was just being in complete awe, actually prior to meeting you, of the fact that you are a Black woman artistic director and founder of the wonderful Shakespeare in Detroit, a company that I think truly is iconic. And the fact that you run such an organization and have worked and traveled all over the country and out of the country, bringing Shakespeare to all people, creating access for people to work on Shakespeare. Oh, Sam, I am in awe of you and your incredible accomplishments. And then not to mention, while we were there doing the residency at the Old Globe, I got a chance to sort of see how you work and see how you talk about your work. And I was just so inspired. And the truth is, Sam, it really reminded me of that moment I had as a very young theater student at ASU. I was like, oh my God, I've got to find a way to thank this person. And we talk all the time. And I always am like, Sam, I love you. But I really wanted to invite you onto this platform and again, listen to you talk about your journey. And the one other thing that I want to say that is one of my favorite Sam stories is just last summer, I had the honor and privilege of visiting you in Detroit. On the campus where Shakespeare in Detroit resides, where it lives right now.
Yes.
And I got a chance to bring my nephews with me, and they got to meet you and they fell in love. And you took so much time, Sam, to show them the space and teach them a little bit about being on stage. And it reminded me of all the incredible work that you've been doing as an educator as well. And the stuff that you've been doing during the pandemic with young people in Detroit around bringing them into the theater space and teaching them theater. So Sam, those are just some of the reasons why I wanted to celebrate you. That's why I invited you on. I'm about to love on you a whole lot today. So get ready. Don't be alarmed.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
And so thank you, Sam, for being here. And that is why I wanted to like hold this space for you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, LA, I am crazy about you. I always tell you this. You're one of those people who I just feel good. I feel good when I'm around you. You know, I feel like you constantly pour into me. I hope that I can do, you know, some of that for you too, because
You
just
do.
your love, your respect, your kindness, it just makes me feel good. And I need that just like everybody else, you know, and even more so now than ever. So thank you for just being a source of good, a source of kindness,
Yes.
and a source of love. I
Yeah.
love me some LA.
Yes. I
Already
love
know.
you. I love you, sister. I
Already
love
know.
it. I love it. Listen, the way I like to start these Celebrate conversations off is by celebrating the day you were born. And that is meant to have you take us back however far you want us to go to wherever you want us to go. And you can talk to us either about your birth story or early memories or young life growing up, anything you want us to know.
Yeah. You know, I guess I'll start with sort of, because, you know, my birthday is this month. So I'll start with my birth story and then fast forward to when I was 8 years old, because I think that period in my life was the most influential as far as my love for theater and all things beautiful. So I was born on April 27th, 4 days after Shakespeare.
Yes, I love it.
And I was you know, I've always sort of like I was born 3 months early, so I was supposed to be July. So I always sort of like to make a dramatic entrance into spaces. And I definitely did that, being premature. And then my mother sort of, because I was a premature baby, sort of always just took extra care of, you know, her sick baby. And always, you know, speaking of people who poured into me, she's probably been the person who has poured into me most in my life.
Yes, mommy.
And read to me, sang to me, you know, hugged on me, kissed on me. There was never a period in my life where I didn't know or how much I was loved. I've always that I'm loved, and I'm loved a lot, you know, by this beautiful Black woman named Janet. And and that beautiful Black woman was also very strict though, LA, because when I was 8 years old, I don't know if I ever told you the story. When I was 8 years old, like we couldn't listen to rap at all in our house. My mother is not a fan. She just fan. And so, but I loved like Tupac and Biggie and, you know, and thought, but I just liked hip hop, because who doesn't? And so I was in my room and I thought I was being like super slick. And I had my I'm like aging myself now. I had like my little like my little boom box like close to my ear. Like I was pressing it so close to my ear that like you could see the little like speaker indentations in my ear, because that's how hard I was pressing it against my ear, trying to listen to push it, like, you know. But you know, mothers, they hear everything, because they have those bat ears. And so she heard me, and I heard a knock on my door. And when I answered it, she was like, "Are you listening to rap music?" And you know, and you either lie or don't lie. Either way, you're gonna get in trouble. So I just stood there, you know, like a deer in headlights. And she handed me the complete works. As she had taken it out of the attic, because it smelled like our attic. You know how attic smells, kind of like a library book.
Mothballs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the mothball smell. Yeah, it was all over that book. And she handed it to me, and the punishment was I had to read that book from cover to cover. So every Saturday I would have to sit on the couch, and I was 8 years old, and read this book until I was done with it. And I hated it. It was boring. I thought I didn't understand it. But eventually fell in love with it. And that was sort of the beginning of my relationship with with theater and with Shakespeare. I also went and saw a chorus line when I was 8 years old with my mother, which sparked, you know, a love for musical theater as well. But you know, as Shakespeare and I, you know, often people talk about sort of how they were introduced to Shakespeare, and it's in school or it's like at a theater. My mama gave me Shakespeare. Shakespeare is my inheritance.
Yes,
I'm 8 years old.
Yes,
By way,
inheritance.
by way of Salt and Pepper, because I got in trouble.
Sam,
Yes,
Salt and Pepper is Shakespeare. I love it.
And I mean, fast forward to now, and I'm madly, deeply in love with the man. You know, it's one of the greatest gifts my mother has given me. I hated it at first, but after, you know, reading it and sort of being able to eventually see myself in those stories, I'm now head over heels with this thing my mama gave me, which was originally a punishment. I hope I get to meet Salt and Pepper. I want to meet Salt and Pepper one day so I can tell them this story.
Tell them, like, listen, I was so into you that I got punished with Shakespeare, and now I love Shakespeare. Man, I love that, Sam. No, you've never told me that story. And I love it so very much. Okay. I'm curious. I have so much that I want to tease out of that, but I'm curious about, where did you grow up? Where are you from? And talk to me a little bit about the sort of structure of your household. You mentioned you and mommy. Did you have siblings? Are you the only child? That kind of thing. And that's one thing. And then once you started reading that book of Shakespeare plays, did you know then, oh, something's happening here? Or was it just like, let me just do the assignment, get done reading it, and then it was 3 years later or 5 years later that you were like, oh, that thing that happened?
Well, I'm from 7 Mile, which is a mile from 8 Mile. You know, everybody knows 8 Mile because of Eminem. So I'm from 7 Mile in Detroit, which is the west side of Detroit, born and raised. Went to elementary, middle, and high school in Detroit. Went to college in Detroit, but Detroiter through and through.
Through and
through. Was raised with a mama and a daddy. My mother was the person who I spent the most time with because daddy was working in a factory. I mean, we are in Detroit after all, right?
Absolutely.
So he was working in a car factory like many other folks from Detroit and from the Rust Belt. And mom was a stay-at-home mother, which is why she had the opportunity to expose me to things like, you know, books and theater and really just wrap her arms around me daily without anything sort of taking her away from us during the day. So and then I had a little brother whose name is, by the way, Frederick Douglass. And
love that.
And cats and dogs. So that's sort of the structure of our house. We live in a corner house on 7 Mile in Greenfield. My dad's no longer with us, but my mom is still there. And just a house filled with love and pets and art.
Yeah.
And then
thank you.
As far as like Shakespeare, LA, I didn't like Shakespeare until I was about a teenager. I mean, I read it when I was 8 because my mom made me. But I mean, it was a punishment, right? So on Saturday when kids would be out playing, because we grew up with a park across the street from us, I could see them in the park while I'm holding this book that smell like mothballs. You know, they going down the slide and I'm like,
oh
they
my God.
swinging on the swings and I'm like, to be or not what did I say, not to be.
Not what they say. Oh Sam.
So by the time I was like a teenager, I had read, because it took about that long for me to finish it, to truly finish it and enjoy it. I had fallen in love with Shakespeare, but not initially. And I think the older I get and the more life experience I have, the more I relate to the plays, you know. But initially, it was truly punishment. Can you imagine? You're reading this big smelly book and kids going down the slide right across the street.
With words you cannot even begin to pronounce. Thou, though, thou, the
ooh, dose, what?
That is punishment if I've ever heard of any in my life.
Right.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
No, that's so good, Sam. So talk to me a little bit more about, I'm always fascinated with the cities that we all come from. Talk to me a little bit more about the climate of Detroit at that time. Sort of demystify that for us a little bit and say whatever the truth is, obviously. But like, I'm just curious about, like, through your lens, what was Detroit like at that time outside the house?
Growing up, it was paradise. It was paradise. Sort of the narratives about Detroit being sort of this bad, scary, violent place. I didn't really hear about those things until I watched the news. But from my perspective, as somebody having the lived experience of somebody born and raised in the city, it was paradise. I lived across the street from a local city park. My school was popping. I was in every single school play. We didn't really travel outside of our like maybe 10 block radius, but we didn't need to. We had the corner store, Save On. I knew all the kids on the block, we'll wave to them. I knew their dogs' names. They knew my cats' names, And then like we were the only house in the neighborhood. I don't know how we ended up being the only house in the hood with a pool. We had a pool. We had a pool.
What?
We had a pool. And all the kids like in the neighborhood would try to come and swim in the pool. So like
the only Sam, I will befriend you right now just to be able to swim in your pool that you had back then.
It was a hood pool. It was a hood pool. Yeah, it was. And it was in the ground. Like it's random. Like it was the only pool on 7 Mile in Detroit. So from my perspective, I would watch the news and you watch sort of national news and hear all these narratives about Detroit being such a hard place, and nobody lives there and it's just abandoned buildings and stuff. My experience was that I had a beautiful childhood in one of the most beautiful cities in the world where everybody was hardworking, like my father.
Yes.
They went and earned, living every day.
Yes.
And then, sometimes we ate better than other times. If my dad was working consistently, then we had, Kentucky Fried Chicken. If he wasn't, then it was Hamburger Helper. But life was good.
Yeah.
Life was good.
Life was good. Life was good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it's to me, there's no other place that I would have rather grown up because the sort of like realness, the authenticity, the work ethic, which is, you work hard and then the rest of your time you love on your family. Like
that's right.
Those sort of values are something I'm going to cling on to no matter where I am in the world.
Come on now.
I'm grateful to be from the Motor City. And it's not just a Motor City, it's the theater city. It's a city that encompasses a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I feel blessed to be from here. I love it here.
Sam, I just that's so good. That's so good. That's so good. Thank you for that. And absolutely, that's a part of what I immediately felt from you when I first met you was that authenticity, that sense of home and down homeness, and also that sense of work ethic that you talk about. All of those things I felt instantly from the moment I laid eyes on you. So thank you for that. You mentioned school plays. I'm curious to hear you talk a little bit about what was your first sort of experience in the actual theater? Was it a school play? Was it 6th grade, 8th grade? Like, talk to me about that.
Oh no, it was 2nd grade. It was 2nd grade.
Wow.
That's right. And it was a spring concert. And me and 2 other girls were doing a tribute to the 1920s. And so we all dressed flappers and my mother made our costumes. So we all had on, like I think I had on the purple, another girl had on blue, another girl had on with our long beads, our little feathers in our hair. And we did the Charleston. And I thought to myself, honey, this is for me. This is for me. This right here, Charleston, this is for me. This is all me. And especially because I was like a shy kid, but the minute and sort of reserved and sort of more I'm more comfortable just sort of speaking to my mother or my cousins or close friends and family. But I would just sort of open up, when I would step on stage and become this other person, And the minute I put on that flapper dress and those long beads, it was on and it was no turning back.
It was no turning back.
I don't think anybody, nobody, Josephine Baker didn't have nothing on my Charleston.
Okay.
Charleston. Yeah, it was 2nd grade. With my red lips. My mother let me wear red lipstick.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you was really serving. Come on now.
Yes.
Red lipstick, second grade.
Second grade.
Man, I love that. Can I just pause, Sam, for 2 seconds and celebrate? Whew, there's so much to celebrate here. First of all, your mama, and her being at home and being present enough to nourish and cultivate whatever you wanted to do and whatever she saw in you, and letting you wear the red lipstick and sort of making your costumes. I think we have to always remember that that's not everybody's story. Everybody doesn't have that kind of support. Even now, as full-blown professional artists, we don't have that kind of support, either from our family members or from people that's supposed to be like our collaborators. Come on, let's talk about it. But I really just want to celebrate that. I love that so much. And I also want to celebrate the fact that y'all had a pool.
We back at the pool.
Sam, because everybody didn't have no pool. And it wasn't just like y'all had the pool, but because y'all had it, we had it. They had it. We all had a pool. And
everybody had a pool.
Everybody.
That pool, you couldn't even swim because it was like too many people in the pool to actually do like a full sort of situation.
Sam, get off my phone. Get off my phone. I'm not about to do this with you. Oh my God.
I was swimming. It was too many people in the pool.
It was too many people in the pool. Y'all were standing around in water like we in a pool. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's so funny. Awesome. I love it. So that from second grade, it was on. Moving forward, did you go to like, what kind of middle school did you go to? And did you go to like a fancy performing arts high school, or did you go to a regular school? And if so, did you continue to do theater and plays throughout middle and high school?
When I got to middle and high school, I kind of took a pause because, not to bring the conversation down, but to be real, I got really bullied, like bullied. And it sort of depleted my energy to be creative throughout middle school, and probably until I was about 16. So from like 12 to 16, it was a lot of anxiety and depression. I was bullied. I mean, and when I say bullied, I don't just mean like, people saying crazy stuff to me. Yeah. I mean where I got thrown in a locker once. Yeah. And pushed down like a set of steps in my middle school. Yeah. And so, and that sort of took the wind out of me, especially because it was such a 360 from what I had experienced when I was the Beyonce at my elementary school. So I'm like, what is this? These people don't understand what is happening. And so I took a pause just because I started to focus on my mental health and the great thing, and you're right, I'm really so grateful for my mother, and I do recognize that having a mother like that is a privilege, because like you said, everybody doesn't have that sort of support, and my mother took me to therapy at 14 years old. And I come from a Black family, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because she recognized that I needed help that she couldn't give me.
That's right.
And so I'm so grateful to have like a mother who was just really aware of her kids' needs, but she was always hyper aware of my needs because, like I said, I was born 3 months early, right? So she really always paid attention to my needs, and made sure to the best of her ability that she be there for me. And so at that time, instead of, she went from sort of supporting me as a preemie to making my costumes in elementary school to then seeing that the need in middle and high school was to get me some mental health support by way of a therapist. So I'm really, really blessed to have that sort of mama, really. And that doesn't fall, like I never take that for granted, because
no, you don't.
She's a special mama.
You always in our conversations, you always love on your mama and give your mama that love. And I appreciate that about you. And what I also appreciate, Sam, is you introducing, mental health into this conversation, as well as therapy, and, bullying, things that a lot of young people go through, that we all went through in some shape or form. And that you also talk about that it wasn't just the sort of common, name calling that, I definitely experienced and so many of us experience, but that it was another level. And thank God again for you and your mom for the willingness and the wherewithal even, to say, let's look at this. And I love what you said. I loved what you said when you said, I took a moment to focus on my mental health. Like, first of all, and now I know why or how you were able to do that, but 14, 15, 16, I don't even know. Like, I didn't even know what mental health was. You know what I mean? So the fact that you knew and that you had a mom who was like, let's figure this out, it's just extraordinary. So not so much where did you go to high school, but how did you, sort of get out of high school? And then what happened after high school? Did you go to college? Did you stay in Detroit? Did you work at Aldi's? Like,
look, during the pandemic, I thought I was going to take a job at Aldi's. Be real.
Come on, let's talk about it.
Listen.
Okay, don't listen.
I love Aldi's.
Me too. That's why I asked about it. I'm like, were you working at Aldi's? Shit.
High school, I went to Mumford, and Beverly Hills Cop featured Mumford High School. Eddie Murphy always wear a Mustangs t-shirt. I just want
to make sure that's known.
When I graduated, though, it took me a long time I want to say this too. It took me 6.5 years to finish undergrad because of my mental health stuff. And so, I think oftentimes, especially like in the theater world or entertainment world, everybody's on tight deadlines. I got to finish undergrad in 3.5 years. Then I got to go and get my master's degree in 1.5 or 2 years. And then I got to do this and I got to do that. I couldn't. And it was okay. I still ended up getting the degree.
Yeah.
But I couldn't take a full load because that would have been overwhelming and gave and sort of triggered some anxiety stuff for me. And so I took my time.
Yes.
I took my time.
Yes.
And it took me 6.5 years. And during that time, I was still performing locally as an actor, mostly in small sort of amateur productions and or community theater, just to keep my acting skills tight, because I was an actor before I became a director, which I am now. And 6.5 years, and I'm proud of that. I wasn't on anybody's timeline other than my anxiety's timeline. How much can I handle this semester? How much can I handle next semester? And I got it done just like everybody else, but I just wasn't on everybody else's timeline.
I love that, Sam. I love that.
It was, and then I discovered, because when I was in college too, I had started just journaling jokes. Jokes were a way for me to sort of they were therapy for me. In addition to doing sort of my traditional therapy with my therapist, I would journal jokes, just things in life that I thought were funny, creating some levity for myself.
Yes.
And so after I graduated, it took me 6.5 years. I moved to Las Vegas to be a comedian with all those jokes that I had written, and lived in a motel for 1.5 years after I graduated, trying to be a comedian.
Wow. Which you absolutely are. And that's another thing that I immediately caught on to when I first met you, and that I can't have a conversation with you. You and I have this thing where we talk late at night, and I'm just like, I don't know if it's a good thing to be laughing this hard before bed or a bad thing, but I love it so much. But no, I love that. And I love that part of your story, which I want to hear a little bit more about. But before we go into what happened after undergrad, I want to hear you talk about what you mentioned, that you went to college in Detroit. So my two questions are, where in Detroit did you go to college? And what was it like having a college experience in your hometown versus living at home with your mom and them? Or did you continue to stay at home?
Yeah, so I went to Wayne State. Why do I keep saying my schools like that? Why do I keep saying
because you should. It's Wayne State. Come on now, it's Wayne State.
I keep Mumford, Wayne
Mumford.
I went to Wayne State, and again, I stayed home just because I was trying to work through my anxiety, right? And I wanted to be close to my therapist. I wanted to be close to my parents and my family. But I also wanted to finish school. I wanted to go to college. And so Wayne State was a great option for me. And it was a really great experience. I mean, I enjoyed the school. It's a little fancier now than it was than when I was there. They didn't have dorms. They have dorms Um,
mm,
Midtown Detroit looks a lot different now than it looked when I was in college.
mm,
So it's a bit more of an active side of town than it was when I
mm,
was there.
mhm,
But nonetheless, I enjoyed it. I was very active. I spent a lot of time working for the South Bend, which was the theater,
mm,
which was the I worked on the theater section for the school paper,
mm,
reviewing theater, reviewing some of the plays out of the Hillberry Theater, which is
mhm, mhm,
if anybody doesn't know what the Hillberry is, it's where the
mhm,
graduate actors train
mhm, mhm,
at Wayne State.
mhm,
And I also worked when I was in school because I paid for my own college.
mhm,
And and did a few internships, and just took my time, stayed close to home, and was building myself up for the real world. Um,
mm,
so I stayed home strategically because I knew at that time, just based on some of the anxiety
mhm, mhm,
issues that I had at the time, that I needed my family's sort of
mhm.
energy really close. At the same time, I wanted a college experience. So
Absolutely. Sam, what did you major in?
communications. I majored in theater at first, and then I dropped that major and went for communications. And why? I don't know. I feel like I'm so weird. The reason I did that was because when I was sort of thinking about, well, first my parents weren't that supportive of the theater degree, and
Mhm,
wanted me to and when my parents, I mean, my mom always loved and sort of cultivated me being in theater to some capacity, but I also think when I got to college, she worried a little bit about my ability to be able to support myself.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so the agreement was that I would get a communications degree, but if I wanted to then after college still pursue my life in entertainment, I could do that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
in communications, and I sort of kept my theater connections by way of my community theater group, which was called St. Dunstan's Theater Group.
Mm,
That I was
mm,
a member there, and that's how I kept acting and
mm, mm.
played a lot of cool roles while I was there too. So yeah,
Yes, I love it, Sam. And so you finished Wayne State.
yep.
How soon after graduation did you go to LA, Las Vegas, not LA? And where did you, I mean, I know where you got the notion to do that from, but where did you get the inspiration to take such a big move? I mean, that's incredible. I love that so much.
3 months after graduation, I moved to
Mm-hmm.
Vegas.
Mm,
The inspiration was, I thought that that was a place to go if you were a comedian, because
mm, mm,
I knew that a lot of comedians had like
mm,
standing gigs at some of the
mhm,
casinos.
mhm, mhm,
People like Rodney Dangerfield, who I
mhm,
thought was
mhm, mhm,
hilarious.
mhm,
I knew other comedians like Eddie Murphy and stuff would come through
mhm,
Vegas, and
mhm,
that was a hot spot, right?
mhm,
And it was a
mhm,
little cheaper than Los Angeles. So
mm,
I thought, okay, I'm gonna post up in a motel
mm,
for a year and a half and see what
mhm,
happens and go from
mm,
there. And I did. I
mm,
lived in a motel. I paid my weekly fee every week to the motel. It was called South Cove in on the sort of original sort of strip in Vegas. If people know where the Gold Nugget is, on Fremont Street.
mm.
I paid my weekly fee. I wrote jokes every week. I attempted to get a gig at the Gold Nugget. If people know what that is, it's not on the strip. It's old Vegas. And I didn't get a gig there, but I did write a lot of jokes, and I ended up getting a because I needed to sort of just take care of myself and pay my weekly fee at my motel.
Yeah.
I got a job at KNPR, which is the uh, NPR affiliate in Las
Mm,
Vegas in Henderson,
mhm,
Nevada.
mhm.
And that's how I sort of just paid my bills while I was trying to harass the Gold Nugget to give me a job while I lived in this motel for a year and a half.
God, I love this story so much, Sam. I love this so much. Oh God, I love it so much. I'm like almost there with you in my mind.
And
I'm
living in a
curious.
motel, by the way, it was great, because if you want to write jokes,
Mm.
live in a motel. Good jokes, the people that are around you, the situations that you hear and see. Yeah, anyway.
With perfect creative grounds. God, that makes so much sense. I was going to ask you, did you drive there? Were you a
Did
you drove? Did you drive alone?
I drove alone,
Mhm.
27 hours,
Mm,
only made two stops. That was for
mm.
gas. Drove through Colorado, made a couple of stops in Utah, and got myself all the way to Vegas by myself.
By yourself, and you went to the motel. That was your
First,
destination.
I went to Motel 6 first, stayed there a week, waited for it opening at South Cove. As soon as they opened up a room which had a refrigerator, I moved on to South Cove Motel and lived there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Wait, Sam, stop. Sam said, when I was waiting on the refrigerator. Okay, wait. I was waiting on a refrigerator. That's so real, bro. That's so real. That's
some
so
of the
real.
rooms, some of the rooms had refrigerators, and some didn't. So it was a hold on the rooms with refrigerators. Do you understand what I'm?
I do. I understand. It's so real. It's so real.
Yeah.
Sam, I can't. I could go on with you. Listen, about Vegas and this boss move. Like, I'm almost envious. What did you learn from that experience of driving yourself to the other end of the country and you know, pursuing this dream, this passion, this thing that you were interested in? What did you learn from that, looking back on it?
Well, I do want to say I was really scared. I was very scared.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't even been to Vegas before. I just knew that comedians go there. But what I learned is that the world is a really big place. You know, it's so big, it's so vast, and I'm capable of anything and everybody. So I think when you sort of think about a motel and living in a place that you've never been before, and thinking about a place that's strange to you that you've never been before, it can seem or feel daunting. But I learned that I think that sort of is what sparked a need to travel in me. Was it because I met so many interesting people, from like Elvis impersonators that lived in the motel, you know, rooms next to me.
Yes.
To meeting like showgirls who also lived in the same complex as me.
Yes.
There's so many like juicy, beautiful stories out there that I want to tell those stories by way of being a director, right?
Yes.
I realize, I mean, you know, if for folks that don't know Detroit is one of the blackest cities in the country, right? I never knew that, you know, sort of the conversations about equity, diversity, and inclusion, those were very new to me because I come from a city where everybody's Black. So
right.
So we're all sort of having the same shared experience. But when I went to Vegas, I sort of realized there were people whose stories were very different from my own. And when I was in Vegas too, when I was working at that radio station, we took a trip out to the Utah Shakespeare Festival, and I saw festival for the first time, which also sparked, you know, or rekindled my relationship with Shakespeare. So the combination of going to Vegas and meeting all these people with amazing, incredible, like extraordinary stories, and having the experience of working at the radio station and going out and seeing a Shakespeare play just a few miles away at Utah, I just learned that theater that's my gig. Like, that's my gig. That's my gig. I want to tell people stories, you know? I want to meet people in spaces and then take that inspiration and put it on stage for people who can't hop in a car and go live in a motel.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
I want to tell like a story that somebody who can't just, you know, drop everything and sort of take a tour across, you know, the West Coast. I want to tell them what's happening over there, and theater is the perfect way for me to be able to do that. It's my gig. It's my purpose. It's what I'm supposed to do. So it reaffirmed who I am, and sort of what was taken away from me, LA, you know, with the high school bullying experience. And that experience in Las Vegas turned me back into that 7-year-old in the flapper dress with the beads and the feathers.
Yeah.
It did.
Sam, that is stunning and beautiful and gorgeous. Oh, Sam, that is so beautiful. I'm so glad to hear. Hey, God, girl, don't get on my phone. You already had me laughing. I'm not gonna cry today, okay? Jesus. Listen, that is so stunning, purely stunning. Moving forward, what happened after your time in Las Vegas? Where'd you go? Did you go back home? Did you go somewhere else? What did you do?
So I as I said, I gave like a little bit about this. Because I had to get a job. I just had to, because the gigs weren't coming in for the comedy work. And when I got the job at the radio station, we took a bus trip with some of our listeners to the Utah Shakespeare Festival. And I thought, this is amazing. If they can do this in the desert, we can do it in Detroit. Why haven't we done this in Detroit?
Come on.
2 months later, I came home. I said, I'm starting a Shakespeare company. Yeah. I'm starting a Shakespeare company. I was inspired by my environment in the motel, just meeting all these sort of stories. I went to the Shakespeare Festival, and then I went home and I said, I'm going to start a Shakespeare company. But when I got home to start the Shakespeare company, it was a really difficult time, because this was like 2009, and the automotive industry was failing at that time. The country was in sort of a financial crisis.
Absolutely.
But more so on the sort of in the Rust Belt, and specifically in Detroit. And so there was a bit of a halt for me doing anything in the city, because it just wasn't the right time and space. But I held on to the idea for about 3 years, and then that's when Shakespeare in Detroit began 3 years later.
Yes. Thank you for that origin story. I never knew that was actually how it all began, and that you had pulled from your experiences of being on the West Coast, and that inspiration came from seeing a show at Utah. I just love it all, Sam. Thank you so much for sharing all of this and reliving it and walking us through it. So Shakespeare in Detroit. Oh, Sam. I mean, what a brilliant inspiration you had. What a brilliant idea, and what a brilliant execution of that idea. The work that you've been doing with Shakespeare in Detroit is absolutely like no other, in that it is, again, a company founded by a Black woman in Detroit, Michigan, centered around the works of Shakespeare. And I think that is incredible, Sam. And I guess I'm wondering, what has that been like for you? And I know that's a big question, but more specifically, like what has it been like? I mean, like, talk to me about Shakespeare in Detroit.
Yeah, it's the greatest thing professionally that I've ever done, will ever do. I mean, I definitely, I dream one day I would love to direct on Broadway, obviously. I would love to do that. But Broadway doesn't need me as much as Detroit does.
Come on, Sam White. Come on, Sam White.
Detroit needs me. And there's something really potently, tangibly satisfying about feeling needed. And Detroit, as I said, has given me so much. When I was a little girl, it was paradise.
Yes.
I owe this to the city that has given me so much.
Yes.
And this is my inheritance, right? By way of my mother.
Yes.
And when you are given a gift, you want to pay it forward. And so Shakespeare in Detroit allows me to pay forward the privilege, that my mother has bestowed upon me.
That's right.
Maybe kids, individuals, people who didn't have that sort of energy. So it's been, Broadway will always be a dream of mine, but my city needs me, and I need it.
And I need it. Yes.
And I do. And that reciprocity of like energy and love that Detroit have for one another cannot be duplicated. And so the 10 years that I've been working on this this mission to bring Shakespeare to my hometown has been one that has, of course, had challenges, right? Of course, because anytime you're an entrepreneur of any type, whether it's creating a nonprofit or
regardless of what it is, yes, exactly.
Challenges. But it has been the most delightful and surprising adventure of my life. The people that I've met along the way, having 3-year-olds come up to me and say, Miss Sam, to be or not to be.
Yeah.
Acting like they're quoting monologues and they're just saying their little
one
one
line.
line. But to have kids in Detroit, they think that Shakespeare is a Black art form. They have no clue who some white dude is. They think it's me. Sometimes they'll say Shakespeare. Like
they think it's you.
And so it's been a delight. I'm so happy to have been the steward for this work. And I'm so proud of the people, specifically the students that we worked with, who have made it their own, because you can love contemporary work and we can love classical work. It doesn't have to be an or. Nope. So this is just an and.
And this is an and. Oh, Sam White. Oh, my friend. Listen, I'm filling up, child. I'm getting full. I feel myself like getting full.
Me too.
I love this so much. I want to take a moment to celebrate in the spirit of celebration. I want to celebrate what you said about Detroit and your need for Detroit and its need for you. I actually, funny enough, woke up this morning and I was journaling about things that I was journaling about. And one thing that came to me was how it really does require a special kind of person to stay home and not leave. And that is not to say you won't leave and you shouldn't leave and any of that. And that you haven't left, clearly, you're right. But I think I consider those people heroes. I do. And I was literally thinking about that this morning. Those of us who stick with our families, stay at home, especially stay at home, which I did not, right? So I'm also coming with a lot of respect and like, yes. And so I just want to celebrate the fact that you have, and I understand what that means in all of its glory, okay? We're gonna talk about just the cute stuff. I know staying at home is not always right, especially in a world where they trick us into believing that we have to go off to New York or LA or all these other things. And it's like, no. And I the other thing I wanted to say, and I say this to my friends all the time, you are a living example of how the work is wherever we are. Hey. Like I'm gonna be LA Williams wherever I go. I can be in Belgium and I'm going to be LA Williams with the same talent, the same artist, tree, all the things. And so I think we got to remember that we are the thing. We are the thing, so wherever you go, it's going to be Shakespeare in Detroit. Yeah. Child, I'm about to send myself in. The other thing I wanted to say though, Sam, about what you just said, I guess I want to create a little bit of space for you to talk about what you said about the young people being like, hey, Shakespeare, and them being able to make it their own. We can't skip over that, Sam. We can't skip over that. We can't skip over the fact that because of Shakespeare in Detroit and people like you leading those conversations, there are Black children, brown children, even white children being like, oh, this is what Shakespeare is. And to be able to look at a Black woman and see that and say that, Sam, if ain't nobody told you today, thank you, sister. Because I'm about to start cursing. It's so important that we have people like us doing work that we do and people like you doing the work that you do so that these children are not confused. Because what you and I know and what I learned when I met you, which was when we were doing the classical directing fellowship, is that Shakespeare is ours. Period. It is ours too. We ain't doing nothing. So I guess I want to just create a space for you, if you shall need it or want it, to talk a little bit about Shakespeare and Blackness, and as a Black woman who focuses on Shakespeare, what that experience has been like for you, or, any of that, I don't know. I don't even know what comes up for you, but if anything does, this,
Yeah. As it is literally Shakespeare's canon is my inheritance.
That's right. Yeah, you said it. Yeah.
My mother put it in my hands. She gave it.
My mother gave it to me. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about some old dead white dude,
That's right.
And
that's right.
We rarely ever talked about him, my mother and I. We talked about the story, characters within the stories. That's right. And because she gave it all the characters as I
Mhm.
read them in my
Mhm.
headspace,
Mhm. Mhm.
in my mind's eye,
Mhm.
were Black.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
They were
Yes.
Black.
Yes.
When I read and finally understand as a teenager
Mhm.
what was happening in King Lear,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
thought about my Black granddaddy. I
Yes.
didn't think about some white dude, I thought about my Black granddaddy
Yeah.
and my aunts who were taking his daughters who were taking
Yeah.
care of him when he became
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
And so, my relationship with Shakespeare, and especially because I think there were a lot of conversations in 2020 about his relevancy in the
Mhm.
American theater.
Mhm. Mhm.
And relevancy is sort of that's a tricky question, because
Mhm.
relevant to who?
Mhm. Mhm.
Relevant to who?
Mhm.
Whether something is relevant or not is sort of an individual decision that one has to make based on their own experiences, background, taste, and likes.
That's right.
And so, according to if you take all of those elements into consideration, for me as a Black person who is somebody who, as you said, focuses on Shakespeare, he's as relevant as ever.
That's right. That's
My
right.
mama gave it to me.
That's right.
And because we couldn't afford to travel LA, like we read all kind of stuff. We read um C.S. Lewis, Octavia
Mhm.
Butler. We read
Mhm.
everything. When
Mhm.
I would I can eat a book, like I call it eating books. I can read
Yeah.
this book probably in 30
Yes.
minutes. That's the
Yes.
way
Yeah.
my mother, myself, and my brother and my father read books.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's I always tell the students that we work with, because we're a professional theater company, but we work with students specifically throughout the school year and in the summer, through a
Mhm.
conservatory. They
Mhm.
have to read Shakespeare anyway. It's
Mhm.
required reading in school.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So they usually have a white English teacher
Mhm.
giving them these plays,
Yep.
sitting at a desk.
Yep.
They're reading plays at a desk as if they're novels.
Exactly. Literally.
So it is my job as a
Mhm.
citizen of this great city that I love, that raised me, in which I
Mhm.
was born,
Mhm.
to give them something to supplement that experience and say,
Absolutely.
first of all, these are plays that are meant to be
Mhm. Mhm.
played on their
Mhm.
feet.
Mhm. Mhm.
And let's talk about how we see ourselves within these plays, right? And
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you sort of how I think these plays might
Mhm.
resonate with
Mhm. Mhm.
as a Black person, because when they
Mhm.
look at me, they're going to see their mom, their auntie, their cousins.
That's right.
And so it's an opportunity for me to give them an alternative experience to what they're already going to have to experience in school.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
beyond that, LA, the beauty of Shakespeare is what I was going to say that I almost forgot, but I just remembered, is we couldn't afford to travel. We had a pool, but we did not
Mhm.
have passports.
Mhm. Mhm.
We weren't
Mhm.
traveling nowhere.
Right. It's
Okay.
right.
Except to the corner store.
That's right. Yes. Right. Yeah.
And the mall, if you got, your in the mall when you got your tax refund. Okay.
Okay. Once a year.
Okay.
One time. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
time.
Exactly. Yeah.
But when I would read, and I would read books like the canon, like Shakespeare's 37 plays,
Mhm.
by the time I fell in love with his work, which I said, was around 16, 17, maybe even more so 18, I had been to Rome. I had
Mm.
been to Egypt. I had been to Venice. I had been to Verona. I had been to all these places, even though I was sitting on 7 Mile. I had been to all these places in my mind's eye. So now, LA, you know me better than a lot of people. I'm traveling all over the world, but this isn't
Mhm.
my first trip there. Okay. I've been doing this.
Come on, Sam.
I've been doing
I've
it.
been doing this.
But I didn't know I wouldn't be traveling now if I hadn't already taken those trips in my imagination, in my mind's eye. My mother giving me those books that served as sort of a passport at that time made it okay for when I became able for me to actually go, okay, well now I can actually travel and see with my eyes what my mind had imagined on 7 Mile when I was reading those books. So when I share Shakespeare with people, it's not to take away from anybody's Blackness or say this is what you have to do to be a real theater person, or this is what you have to do to really be educated. You have to do. It's just saying this is another passport for your imagination to get you off your block and to let you know that the world is available to you.
Mm.
We want to read books that affirm who we are. Those are important,
Mhm.
and Shakespeare can do that as well. But it's
Mhm.
also important to use books, to use imagination, to use plays, to use theater, to use art, to take ourselves from off of our blocks, because a lot of us live on blocks that are hard to grow up in, and to take a trip around the world to remind ourselves that the world is bigger than our current circumstances. So if I hadn't read those books, if I hadn't read that canon in LA, I wouldn't be jumping and hopping on planes to France like I do now.
Because you do. I'd be like, Sam, where are you? I'll be back in 2 months. Sam.
But it started on 7 Mile. It started on 7 Mile.
That, Sam, this is so deeply profound and beautiful and resonant even, but also like, it's why I wanted to celebrate you. It's exactly why I thought I want to amplify this voice and this mission, because what you just said is so brilliant. I have to ask, because my brain won't let me not. Where did your mama get the book from? Was she a Shakespeare fan, or was it just one of those things she picked up at the library and was like, I was just gonna take this because how did she get it?
My mother didn't go to college.
Okay.
There is just a ferocious reader who also, yep. And now she grew up in the hood too. But some of the most scholarly people I've ever met are in the hood.
Of course, yes, child.
And my mama was one of them.
One of them. I love it.
And would devour books in like 3 books in an afternoon. And so we literally, even now at my childhood home, just have stacks of books in the attic upstairs in my parents' library. And she went in that attic, grabbed the thickest book she could find, and the canon is big, it's thick. And made me read it.
And here you go. Sam,
made me read it.
I am, ooh, Lordy, I'm so happy that you exist. I'm so happy that you exist. Again, I said this earlier, but my inspiration behind inviting you on is layered, obviously, but it was really the moment we had last summer when I just stopped in Detroit. I was like, let me call my sister. Sam, where you at? And you showed the kids around and you did all these things. But the thing that I want to say now is I hated that I had just missed your summer programming. I think we had just missed it or something like that, right? Y'all had just finished doing the camps that you talked about, or the summer programming. And so I just want to say congratulations on that. And thank you for that. And I love that you just talked about it being a part of the mission and the supplemental piece of what you're trying to do and what not trying, baby. Sorry, excuse me, what you are doing, thank you. And so I guess I'm almost saying, I'm sorry I missed the thing last summer, but I'm glad that I was able to catch you right on the sort of tail end of it. And I felt that energy.
Because I took your nephews to school. I was like,
yes, you did. You were like, all right, look, you were still in mode. You were still in summer mode. You were like, get on stage. All right, this is, downstage left, downstage right. And I was like, yes. And they loved it and they loved you. Oh, they did. And we talk about it afterwards because we talk about things. And they were like, I was like, what was your favorite thing about the day or Detroit? They were like, Miss Sam. They loved Miss Sam in the theater and Shakespeare. And I got to see, actually, not that I needed to see it at all, child, because hell, you taught me everything I know about Shakespeare. And I'm grown, child.
Anyway.
but like, I got to see the way you work with young people. And that's what made me say, I've gotta say thank you. So thank you. Thank you. Sam, in the spirit of lightheartedness and fun, I like to do a thing on Celebrate where I just ask a couple of random questions, like, and also getting to know you better. What are some of Sam's favorite things? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite song? Your favorite city? Like just lighthearted, fun stuff.
My favorite song is, oh my goodness, don't judge me.
God. What's it about to be?
It's Invisible Touch by Phil Collins. Okay, I'm about to log on.
Why? If I'm judging you, I'm judging myself. I mean, anything by Phil Collins is, I mean, come on. She said log on. Look, Sam. Oh my God, that's so funny. That's great. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Phil Collins is a legend. I mean, and
clearly, yes.
And my favorite city besides Detroit is Paris. I love Paris.
Yeah.
My father lived there. May he rest in peace. So I feel very connected to him when I go to Paris. My favorite food is, I guess, in the line, sort of along the lines of Paris, is a really warm croissant with an espresso. Just sort of at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds
delicious.
Yummy. Yeah, that sounds yummy.
What else favorites? My favorite musical is A Chorus Line, just because it's the first one that I saw. And The Wiz, which I hope our kids can do in a couple years. We're gonna do
yes. Oh, that's amazing.
What else? My favorite color, I don't have one. It maybe it's the color white, because that's my last name.
Yeah. I love that. I
Oh,
love it.
and my favorite my favorite two movies. The Godfather Part 2. Because Francis Ford Coppola is a genius.
Yes.
And then I also my second favorite movie to that is, somebody had just asked me what was my second favorite movie, and I told them that I watch over and over and over and over again. I can't remember. Oh my goodness, because I love film too. Like I have a deep love for theater, but I hope at some point in my career I can actually make a film.
Absolutely.
And direct a film. So I've been trying to watch more films lately.
Yeah.
What else? What else favorites? I don't know. What else?
I love that. I mean, that's plenty. That's so juicy. I love it. I love that. I feel like, yeah, I just love to ask those questions in the spirit of getting to know one better and all the things. Sam, obviously you and I can carry on. We can talk forever and ever. But I'm already, again, so full and I've learned so much. I like to wrap these conversations up by asking 3 questions to each guest. The first one being, what does it mean to you to be celebrated?
To me, being celebrated means being seen, being affirmed for exactly who I am. And even beyond this conversation, I always feel seen by you, LA. I tell you that all the time. I feel celebrated by you all the time. That's what it means for me, being affirmed for exactly who I am, not the version that somebody else wants me to be.
You to be. Yeah.
Exactly who God, who the divine created me to be.
That's right. That's
it. And that's enough.
That's it. And that's enough. There is nothing else after that. Yeah, that's so juicy. Thank you for that, Sam. Absolutely. Thank you for that. What or who do you celebrate?
I celebrate my mother, I celebrate my mother, and this, I've been a caregiver for both of my parents for the last couple of years. And it is, while some people would think of caregiving as being sort of this sad, sort of depressing thing, because it is difficult seeing your parents be ill. And I did lose my dad, and my mom is still hanging in, but it is the greatest gift. I celebrate her.
Yes.
The Bible says to honor thy mother and thy father. And I have done that, Lord. I have done that.
I have done
to
that.
the 10th degree.
Yeah, God.
So I celebrate my mother and the wonder that is her. I learned something new about her every day. And even learning this version of her, which is a much different version than when I was younger. I celebrate that. I honor that. I revere that woman. And for the rest of my days, I will celebrate her.
Hey, God, hallelujah. Sam, I love that so much. So beautifully said. Thank you for that. Who, child? You wearing me out, Sam. Let me get off this phone. Let me get off this phone. Exactly.
Log off.
Look. Why people got to lean in with it? It's so funny. This is why, Sam, I can't do this with you.
I know.
You bring out the silly Willie in me, and I love it. What do you do to celebrate you?
How do I celebrate me? It's changed recently. The one way I used to celebrate myself, and you know this already, I'll share beyond you though, is that I loved working out, so that's how I expressed myself. And I celebrated not because I was trying to make my body do something differently than what it does, or try to make it into something else. I celebrated what my body could do and the life that I had.
Yes.
By movement and by way of caring for myself. And now the way that I celebrate me is I go to therapy. That's my celebration once a week.
Yes. Come on now.
And
Yes.
I show up with my journal and I say, okay, doc, let's work this out. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I celebrate when I get into that parking lot at my therapist and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I made it. I made it to
Yes.
therapy.
Yes.
And I really give myself the opportunity to take good care of this mind and this
Mm-hmm.
heart of.
Yes.
I do it weekly, and that's sort of the greatest celebration that I can do for myself is to continue that work, that mental work, that emotional work, and that spiritual work for me. I go to therapy for me. I do plays for myself and for other people. I do our youth conservatory for other people because I want to do that for other people. But when I'm in therapy, that's how I take care of and celebrate me.
Hmm. Yes, Sam. Yes. I am so glad that you are taking care of you, because without you, there would be no Shakespeare in Detroit. There would be no youth conservatory. There would be none of those things that you give to us if you don't first give to yourself, right? So thank you for taking care of yourself and loving on yourself. And I love it all. I love it all. I love it all. Sam, clearly I celebrate you. I love you, sister. I'm
I love
so
you.
thrilled to be on this journey with you. I'm so glad our paths have crossed. And I just always love every time we speak and laugh together and all the things. And I don't know, Sam, I'm just so glad and grateful that I got to say thank you in this particular way. So thank you for saying yes to participating in this with me. And I just love it, Sam. I love it.
Thank you, LA. I love you. I
Mm,
adore you. I
mm,
respect
mm,
you.
mm,
I
mm,
value you. Thank you for
mm.
having me.
I feel the same exact way. And I want you to know, Sam, too, that it's not just me that feels this way. So many of us love you. We've got your back. We are here for you. You are one of us. We are you. Like, like we are, like, that's the other thing that I want you to always know is that, like, we got you. We have each other. It may not feel like it. I get it. But I'm hoping that this moment affirms that in some way for both of us, right? Like we're all in it together. So thank you again. Love you. Talk to you soon. Now it's time to really do the lean in. It's gonna be awkward now because I done made it into a thing. People are gonna be looking
Love
like
you.
exactly. I love it so much. Sam, we're gonna do this again very soon. We can carry on.
I know. I'll talk to you at 1 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'll call you tonight in the middle of the night. Exactly. Bye.
Bye. Bye, LA.
Bye.